Hello everyone, welcome to the channel and part 4 of New Zealand Study Visa. We have with us Ms. Parvinder. She is an LIA agent and expert visa counselor. In part 1, we discussed the programs and institutions. In part 2, we discussed the course relevancy and admission process. In part 3, we talked about file submission, requirements and documents. The videos link are on the top. In part 4, today we are going to discuss what happens after the file submission. We are going to talk about interview, AIP and processing time. So ma'am, what happens after the file is submitted by the students?
Once the applicant has submitted his study in New Zealand visa application with Immigration New Zealand, so the next step is the student needs to wait for the decision of the application. If the decision of the application is positive, the students receive AIP. AIP means that the application has been approved in principle. This is the first stage, which is after the submission of the application with Immigration New Zealand.
So what are the conditions of this AIP?
AIP, as the name suggests, is approval in principle. Like we discussed in our last video about the documentation and requirements of submitting the visa file with Immigration New Zealand. One of the requirements was to having enough funds for the tuition fee and cost of living. So during the submission of the application, like the best part of New Zealand study visa is that the students need not submit their fee in advance. In advance means before submitting the visa application. The tuition fee needs to be transferred once the application has been approved in principle. So the students receive AIP, that is application has been approved in principle, and there are certain conditions which the student must meet so that he finally gets his visa, which would enable him or her to travel to New Zealand. The main condition is that the students, they need to submit their tuition fee for 1 year. Applicants must take care that they submit the fee from the funds which has been shown with the student visa application. So along with the condition which is written in the AIP letter that the student needs to pay the fees of 1 year, it is also mentioned that the student must pay fee in accordance with the policy. That means the fees must be paid from the funds which has been shown as a part of the student visa application process.
Okay, so students only need to submit tuition fee for AIP?
It's not only tuition fee. Yes, tuition fee is a must, but there are certain students who may also get the requirement of FTS. So the students may also be required to fulfill the condition of FTS, that is Funds Transfer Scheme, to get their final visa.
What is FTS?
FTS, it stands for Funds Transfer Scheme. This is for students, like under this scheme, the students, they need to transfer their cost of living to a bank in New Zealand. As in the previous video where we discussed about the requirements and documentation, I spoke that the students need to have access to New Zealand dollars 20,000 for their cost of living. Now certain applicants may also get one condition of FTS in their AIP requirement, that is along with their tuition fee, they also need to transfer New Zealand dollars 20,000 to a bank, ANZ bank in New Zealand. This is another condition which the students may get in their AIP letter.
Okay, so you are talking about account opening. So how do a student open an account when bank is in New Zealand?
Yes, as I said that it is a FTS scheme, Funds Transfer Scheme. Under this scheme, the students, they can open a bank online while physically being in India. So it's policy of Immigration New Zealand that you need to open an account in ANZ Bank under FTS scheme, and there are certain conditions which the students must follow, and they can very well open their account while being here in India. At West Highlander, for our students, we guide them step by step because it's the student's account, the students need to follow the step. But as it may be a new procedure and it is a totally new procedure for the student, we guide them step by step how to go ahead with the process.
Okay. What are the conditions for opening an FTS account?
like first and foremost condition is that you need to send an email to the ANZ bank. In that there is a online form whereby the student fills up the form and sends certain documentation there. Now the student has received the AIP letter from Immigration New Zealand, AIP letter which we spoke, approval in principle, where it is written that one of the conditions is that the student needs to open a FTS account. So when we submit this online form, we mention this thing that we have received our AIP, that is approval in principle, from Immigration New Zealand, and we attach that letter. Other than this, there are other documents like your identity proof, your passports, your income proof, your funds which you would be transferring to New Zealand. So these are certain documents which the students need to send to the bank, ANZ Bank in New Zealand. Once all the requirements are complete, the students get the account number where they can transfer the fee, and this account can be opened in about 10 to 15 days.
So how much time do students get to fulfill AIP requirements?
The students get time of about 10 to 15 days to fulfill the AIP requirements, that is approval in principle requirements. So that time is enough to pay your tuition fee, opening of account, transferring of funds.
What happens if a student can't complete the requirements in the given time frame?
Immigration New Zealand is flexible about this. When you get your AIP letter, it is mentioned there that if you are unable to complete the AIP requirements in the given time frame, they need to contact the case officer. So in this case, we contact the case officer on the student's behalf, as we are their agents dealing with their student visa application with Immigration New Zealand, and we request them for an extension giving the reasons. Now, the student may have transferred his tuition fee to the college or university in New Zealand, but may be waiting for the receipt which we need to upload with Immigration New Zealand. So we can give them the proof that the funds they have been transferred from India, like TT receipts. And in the case of opening of FTS account in ANZ Bank, we can give them the communication evidence that we are in conversation with the bank in relation to account opening, and based on this evidence the case officer would grant you extension. Students must take care that they must have reasons for the extension. It should not be like this that you were given 15 days to complete the AIP requirements. You did not do anything first 13 days, and now in the last 2 days you started the process and asking for extension, so that may be a problem.
So after the AIP requirements are fulfilled, what comes next?
As I spoke, once the AIP requirements are complete, that is approval in principle requirements are complete, which is your tuition fee and FTS account if it comes in AIP requirement. We upload all those documents on the Realme portal, we send it to the case officer, and after that the student gets the visa. That is a proper New Zealand student visa with dates mentioned on it, the travel dates, the duration of the visa, and based on that visa the students may travel to New Zealand to attend the university or college.
Okay, so what I understood is that after student submits the application, they get an AIP.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, what is the processing time for the whole process?
Once the student has submitted his student visa application with Immigration New Zealand, and if the decision is positive, the student gets AIP, that is approval in principle letter. Currently the time is about 8 to 10 weeks. Applicants must note that this time may vary, like the processing time for university is comparatively less compared to the colleges. So students must take a time frame of 8 to 10 weeks to expect a decision of the application.
Okay. So there is a common query, is interview compulsory for New Zealand study visa?
Well, not compulsory, but yes, the students may get interview as a part of the visa application process. We cannot say that you would be getting interview and you would not be getting interview. It's the assessment of the case officer. Students do get interviews, but it is compulsory or not compulsory. There is no yes or no to it. It depends on the profile, but students do get interview.
Okay. So at what stage of the whole process do students get interviewed?
The interview comes before AIP, approval in principle, because to approve your application in principle, there are certain things the case officer sees, like that we have provided them with our academics, the case officer has assessed those academics. We have provided with the funds, the case officer has assessed those funds. We have provided income proofs, the case officer has assessed income proofs. Like whatever documentation we have provided with the application, the case officer has assessed it. Now the case officer may feel the need to interview you to gauge your intention to study in New Zealand before approving your application. That is before approval in principle. So the interview would be coming before your application is approved in principle, if the decision is positive.
Okay. So what all is asked in the interview?
As I spoke, the interview is conducted to gauge the intention of the student. So the case officer interviews you to know about your intentions to study in New Zealand. He may ask you about the course you are planning to study. He may put you questions to assess whether you have done research about this, like you are planning to spend lakhs of rupees for your study in New Zealand and you don't have any idea of what you are studying. So this would seriously cause problem with the application. So the case officer would be asking you questions regarding your college, your university, your course contents, what you will be studying, what are the career outcomes you expect to have, what finances you may have. All these kinds of questions may be asked as a part of the interview process.
So ma'am, sometimes it happens that students' files are under process but intakes have passed. So what do students do in this situation?
This is a common query we receive from applicants. Like I have come across certain cases where the applications have been submitted but the intake for which the application was applied has passed. So firstly, I would suggest the students to apply for their student visas well in advance. As I said that 8 to 10 weeks is the visa processing time. Before that, you need to prepare your visa documentation. Let's say that it could take you 15-20 days to prepare that documentation. And before that, you need to have offer letter. So offer letter may take 1 week to 1 month depending on university or college you wish to study. So the best advice is that the students must apply well in advance for their visa application. But somehow if the intake has passed and your visa application is still under process, then the students, they can always ask for an extension from their university or college. So the university or college may give you extension of 1 week to 10 days or 15 days depending on their requirement, and if they can provide you with the extension. And the second option is that you can always ask for an updated offer of a place and update with Immigration New Zealand. So I have come across cases where the intakes have passed and we have got approval in principle for students and the intake has passed as I told. So one of the conditions mentioned in the AIP letter is that the Immigration New Zealand needs updated offer of a place. So in that case we provide with updated offer of a place, and students need not worry if the intake has passed. You always have the option of providing updated offer of a place.
That was all about this video. We talked about New Zealand study visa processing time, AIP and interview. In part 2, we received many queries from students and parents regarding the total cost of studying in New Zealand and at what stage do they need to pay, and we will be discussing that in our next video. Thank you for watching, and you can contact West Highlander in case of any query regarding to New Zealand study visa. We will be glad to help you. Thank you.
Thank you.